From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, Monday, July 8th, 2024. We've got a packed show today. I hope everyone had a relaxing 4th of July. Very, very long, nice, like 4 or 5 days that most people took off. It was unbelievable. It was great. It was time much needed. Of course, typically before every holiday, there's a slew of cyber activity. One difference here, though, was there was so much going on this July 4th weekend that ransomware gangs almost forgot about it a little bit. You had elections in Great Britain on the 4th. You had elections in France over the weekend. You had the Euro quarterfinals, Copa America. So a lot going on. So without further ado, please make sure to subscribe, follow, share, and so much more. You can find a lot of content on our Substack. So join us there as well. Now, join me for a coffee cup cheers this morning. I'm having a Lavazza medium roast, kind of really nice espresso. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Love it. All right, let's go ahead and kick off with the breach that's been haunting many, which is this recent Twilio breach that according to attackers, leaked 33 million phone numbers associated with the Authy application, which is Twilio's two-factor authentication app. The leaked information also included account IDs and some non-PII associated with the Authy users. Twilio posted that they've detected that the threat actor were able to identify data associated with Authy accounts, including phone numbers, due to an unauthenticated endpoints. They've taken action to secure this endpoint and no longer allow unauthenticated requests. What's that authenticated endpoint, you may ask yourself? It's an API. So here's the deal. 2024, Twilio is essentially an API shop, right? I mean, if you've ever implemented Twilio anywhere, you know they're an API shop. And if you're an API shop, how do you deploy an unauthenticated endpoint that's a GET request that gives you access to all the data? Just asking for a friend. Someone can explain that one for me. Like, I'm never one to blame a victim unless you leave the door wide open. And here you left the door wide open. Look, API endpoints and API tools are very, very common today. And in fact, you can own the entire life cycle of API by essentially using the right tool, and there's many of them, right? And I won't name them, but there's a ton of them out there. It's basic. You see an API that's got this type of information on it. They may have not categorized the API as being significant, but now you've got all those phone numbers out there, and now those people could be phished. So there's that for MFA bypass. And now you lose your core business. Just putting that out there. Healthcare fintech firm HealthEquity is warning that it too suffered a data breach after a partner account was compromised and used to access the company's systems to steal health information. The company said it detected the compromise after an anomalous behavior from a partner personal device. They launched an investigation. The investigation revealed that a partner had been compromised by attackers who leveraged a hijack account to gain unauthorized access to their system and exfiltrated sensitive health data. The investigation concluded that the partner user account had been compromised. HealthEquity specializes in providing HSAs and FSAs, HRAs, and 401k retirement plans, all very important accounts for many Americans looking for tax savings for healthcare costs. It's one of the largest HSA custodians in the United States. It manages millions of HSAs, FSAs, and HRAs and other benefit accounts, and works with numerous employers and health plans. The company also promised to offer complimentary credit monitoring and identity restoration services to mitigate the risk for exposed people. They're evaluating the incident's impact and cost, but we'll see how this one boils out. OVH Cloud this week revealed it mitigated the largest ever DDoS attack in terms of packets rates amid an overall increase in DDoS attack intensity. The packet raid DDoS attacks seek to overload the processing engines. If you don't know what it is, then I suggest you use Google. But anyways, this specific DDoS attack peaked at 840 million packets per second. The largest packet rate attack was registered in April of this year. That one had 809 million packets per second. So a new world record. If you can, if you keep filing those every 3 months, you'll update it. Even more worrying was that OVH Cloud had been observing a sharp increase in packet rate DDoS attacks above the 100 million packets per second threshold for the last 6 months. Typically, threat actors rely on DDoS attacks that focus on exhausting the target's bandwidth, typically layer 3 attacks or resources layer 7 attacks, but the adoption of packets rate assaults is surging. Most of the traffic used in the recorded attack, the cloud provider says, consisted of TCP ACK packets originating from roughly 5,000 different IPs. The company's investigation revealed the use of a MikroTik router as part of the attack, especially cloud core routers, namely the CCR 1036 8G2S+. So those were the ones apparently that were being taken advantage of. This really kind of mimics the Mirai botnet, which were first to break the 1 terabyte per second threshold in 2016. We're now seeing really the evolution of DDoS attacks, and imagine at a time of need what these DDoS attacks could do if they're not mitigated or if they all flow simultaneously. That could be significant. The Alabama Department of Education stopped a ransomware attack but confirmed that data was in fact stolen. Said that they stopped a ransomware attack last month. Attackers were still able to access some data and disrupt some services. However, on June 17th, they attempted to target servers. We talked about that here on the show at the time. Federal law enforcement, as well as the Alabama Attorney General, began an investigation, which is still ongoing. While they still don't know the exact content of the information, it's possible that they breached both student and employee data, including some PII. They're working with the FBI and other experts to monitor the situation. The agency has set up a page online to provide updates about the breach. The Alabama Department of Education runs nearly 1,500 schools across 138 school districts, serving 750,000 young Alabamans students there as well. The department didn't explicitly confirm whether they dealt with a ransomware attack, but said they took the position not to negotiate with foreign actors and extortionists on the advice of law enforcement. That's the way to go about it. Alabama, no stranger to ransomware attacks. The city of Birmingham was hit with one as well. The new Eldorado ransomware as a service emerged back in March, and it comes with a locker variant for VMware, SXI, and Windows. The gang already has 16 victims all in all, most of them in the U.S. in real estate, education, healthcare, and manufacturing. Researchers at Group IB monitored Eldorado's activity and noticed that operators promoting the malicious service on ramp forums and seeking skilled affiliates to join the programs. Eldorado also runs a data leak site like many ransomware gangs that lists victims, but it was down at the time that this article was being written by our friends over at Bleeping Computer. Eldorado is a Go-based ransomware that both encrypts Windows and Linux platforms through two distinct variants with extensive operational similarities. So the researchers obtained from the developer an encryptor, which came with a user manual saying that there are 32 and 64-bit variants available for VMware, ESXi hypervisors, and Windows. And again, the evolution of cybercrime here, very, very simple. We can talk about this ransomware forever, but really the focus here is the fact that they are going after VMs. And while potentially in the past, we really secured our servers, but we understood everything runs on VMs, and VMs, are a bit more secured and whatnot. Not anymore. They're targeting VMs. They know that causes significant disruption. They know it increases the likelihood that someone will pay. It also increases the likelihood that they can really disrupt and cause havoc, which is, by the way, if they're not trying to get you to pay a ransom, if they're doubling or tripling down, meaning specifically you're a publicly traded company or you're associated with a publicly traded company, I shut down your environment so said companies can no longer operate. Now, because of the SEC rules dictating that I have to report an operational breach within 3 or 4 days, I can then short your stock on a put option. and make my money that way. And if you pay me a ransom, great. But if you don't, I don't care. I put a put option on your stock. I made some money and I moved on. Right. And that money's split. That's one way. And that's why you see them target specific companies repeatedly, especially kind of lower performing companies in the stock market, because they're able to put a put option and they can kill the company with that. By the way, companies can survive. Most companies today could survive a ransomware attack if they've got right backups, if they understand, if they've got good incident response plans. I know those are two big ifs. But if you're a publicly traded company, and let's say your stock isn't doing so hot, and then you get hit with this, it could put you out of business. It could put you out of business. And that's the true fact. That's the true risk there. So keep an eye out on your VMware, ESXIs, all your hypervisors, all of your VMs. They are a target. Security researchers are also raising an alarm on a Ghostscript vulnerability that leads to remote code execution that's already being exploited in the wild. CVE 2024-29510 is a format string injection in the Uniprint device. The security defect could allow an attacker to bypass the safer sandbox and execute code remotely. Coden Labs security researchers who identified the issues are issuing this warning. The conversion kit Ghostscript is commonly used in various applications for processing user-supplied files across Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and various embedded systems. The toolkit's wide use across automated conversion systems has prompted Ghostscript developers to implement a series of sandbox features to prevent its abuse and have enabled the safer sandbox by default for hardening purposes. They've discovered and reported the 6 bugs that were addressed in Ghostscript versions 10.03.0 and 10.03.1 over the past several months. These vulnerabilities include several CVEs, all 2024 29510, 29509, 29506, 29507, 29508, and 29511. So multiple write-ups. You can check them out there. And you want to double check that you've got the right version of Ghostscript there as well. And there's some mitigation as well. Cloudflare's reports that its DNS resolver issue 1.1.1.1.1 was recently unreachable or degraded because of a combination of a border gateway protocol hijacking and a route leak. The incident occurred last week and impacted 300 networks in 70 countries. Despite the numbers, the company says that impact was quite low, and in some countries, users didn't even notice it. Cloudflare confirmed it on June 27th. Electronet began announcing the 1.1.1.1.1/32 IP address to its peers and upstream providers. The incorrect announcement was accepted by multiple networks, including tier 1 providers, which treated it as a remote triggered black hole route. The hijack occurred because BGP routing favors the most specific route according to protocol. So this did have some impact downstream. They were able to remediate it and get everything back up and running. They've written out a post-mortem about what they're doing going forward, but BGP hijacking, not the first time, won't be the last time. This time it's Cloudflare. Pennsylvania healthcare provider Casinger is facing a class action lawsuit after a former nuisance employee accessed a PII of more than 1.2 million individuals in November of last year. Casinger discovered the data breach in late November and immediately notified Nuisance, a Microsoft-owned company, that a former Nuisance employee had accessed certain patient information 2 days after the employee was terminated. The information that was potentially accessed and stolen, according to the provider, includes names, addresses, dates of birth, phone numbers, race, gender, admit and discharge, or transfer codes and medical record numbers. No claims or insurance information, credit card or bank account information, or any sort of financial data or social security numbers were inappropriately accessed by the company's former employee. Why you don't disconnect, why you got to immediately cut credentials across the whole nine is critical. If you're a Formula One fan, the auto racing governing body since the 1950s says attackers gain access to personal data after compromising several FIA email accounts in a phishing attack. So the FIA says that one of their employees had fell victim to a phishing attack that contained personal data. And so now they're reporting that breach out there. And again, human error, classic. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest. Again, please make sure to subscribe, follow. If you've got any stories or any tips, you can always send those to us on our X page, LinkedIn, or on our website, cyberhubpodcast.com. Have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.